Hey guys, Isaac here with Retrograde Ministries coming at you with a brand new series of videos. This one is going to be all about relationships. This is going to be part one of our relationship series. I'm not sure how many parts we're going to have this. It could get pretty long, but this is a huge topic. Relationships. We're talking all things dating, which eventually leads to marriage. You'll find out that real soon. This is going to be a hugely important topic for you in retrograde and in sobriety in general. Relationships are going to be a huge part of life, and knowing when and how and should you engage in a relationship, and that's our focus here. We want to prepare you for moving forward. Relationships are part of life, and definitely part of sobriety. So this video today, this is part one. Let's start out with answering a question: what is a relationship? So, in general, a relationship is a commitment of companionship to a person of the opposite sex. Okay? This includes dating, and it includes marriage. I would argue that the point and purpose of a dating relationship has one goal, and that is to find a spouse, find someone that you eventually want to marry. We'll talk about that more in the second part, but for part one, we're going to define what is a relationship. So, in essence, it's a commitment, right? It's a commitment to another person, it's a commitment to date, and a commitment to ultimately marry. To better understand the relationship of marriage, any relationship, and ultimately marriage, we need to find out where does the idea, where does marriage even come from? So, in the first few pages of the Bible, first few chapters of the Bible, God creates the universe, right? And He creates the animals. He creates the fish and the birds, and He creates humans. The first human that He makes, his name is Adam. God forms him from the dust of the earth, and He gives Adam authority over creation. He makes Adam in His own image. God's own image is how He makes Adam. The story goes on, and Adam is lonely. And God says the first thing that is not good about His creation, He says, it is not good that man be alone. So from there, God creates Eve, and He joins them together in marriage. And God says, therefore, the two shall become one flesh. And that is where we get the very first idea of what marriage is. Marriage is commitment. Marriage is two people becoming one flesh, becoming one thing. So if we peel back the curtains a little bit into that and dive in a little bit more to understand relationships, and specifically marriage. What is a relationship? What is marriage? I'm going to dive into that a little bit. I just have a few things for us. Number one, marriage is love. So, love in our society gets a ton of notoriety, right? It's what we see on Valentine's Day. It's what we see in the movies. It's what we see on the commercials. Love is communicated to us like it is that feeling of deep satisfaction and completion. That is the idea of love. I would argue that that is only one part of love. Valentine's Day, right? So you go out and you buy roses and you buy chocolates and you have a nice evening and you have dinner and wine and whatever society wants to tell us, they say that that is love. And we see that best on Valentine's Day. Real love looks differently than that. I can break it down into three different parts real quick. To understand love, when I was on Facebook one time, I saw a meme, and that meme said, If I had one last breath to breathe, I would use it to say I love you. And we read that, and it's like, oh, wow, that would make a great Valentine's Day card. But the fact of the matter is, that's not real love. My opinion, the Bible's opinion on love, would read it this way: if I had one last breath to breathe, I would give it to you. I would give it to you. That, in my opinion, communicates what love is much better than the first one. Love, how I define love, can be broken into three different parts that I call the dance of love. Love is choice, love is action, and love is feeling. So feeling, we all know this one. That's the Valentine's Day thing, right? When you first get in a relationship, you're all hopped up on these feelings and deep satisfaction and drive and purpose. That's the feeling of love, right? The great admiration of a person. But that is not all that love is. So number one is feeling. Yes, love is a feeling. Love is also action. How do you know if someone loves someone else? If you can't see that deep feeling in them, how do you know someone loves them? Well, actions. Actions speak what is inside of you. Actions are a visible representation of what is inside. So love is not just feeling, but it is action. The act of love. This is the doing of love. So taking out the trash, right? And managing finances and caring for the other person while they're sick, or if they need help, and helping the other person and doing things for them, and sacrificing your own time and your own energy for that person. That is doing love. Action. It's what you do. So love is also action. It's feeling, yes, but it is also action. Something cool about these different characteristics is they all act independently, meaning you can have feeling of love and you can have action of love. And those things are also, they're separate, they're individual, but they're also collective. So if you feel tremendously great towards someone, that leads to an action. If you act for someone that you don't know, holding a door open, conversation, engaging with them, that will also lead to a feeling. And number three is choice. Third characteristic of the dance of love is choice. There's going to be times in your life where you're in a relationship, hopefully leading to a marriage, or you're in a marriage, and your feelings are going to be completely different than you want to act. Relationships are hard. Things happen. Sometimes your feelings are not going to be positive towards the other person. Sometimes your feelings aren't going to drive your actions. And sometimes your actions aren't going to drive your feelings. Choice is the third part. You can feel to love. You can act to love. But what happens when those aren't giving you that desire, that pull, that motivation of being in a relationship? And that's where choice comes in. So regardless of feeling, you can choose to love. You can choose to act. You can choose to do things. You can choose to commit yourself. You can choose to love. If you choose to love, feelings will follow. So all three of those characteristics, choice, feeling, and action, they are both separate and collective, and they influence each other. When you don't feel it, choose to act, and feelings will follow. So marriage is love, and specifically the dance of love, feeling, choice, and action. Number 2, marriage is commitment. So the foundation of a marriage is total commitment between two people. What is commitment? Commitment is the voluntary submission of oneself to another person. Committing yourself is to align yourself for the other person. If someone is committed to a cause, they dedicate themselves to it. If you are in a marriage, you are committed, dedicated to that marriage. In a marriage, the degree of mutual commitment there is between both people is the degree that the marriage will be successful. How easy it will be to overcome challenges. Marriage takes two people who choose to be committed to each other, utterly committed. The two will become one flesh. One thing is a marriage, not two people. It is two people, but when joined in marriage, it becomes something entirely different. You become one. That means that your life, what you claim right now as your own, does not continue to exist when you choose to be in a relationship and you're in a marriage. So your finances aren't your finances. Your personal goals are not your personal goals. Your dreams are not your dreams. The two will become one. It's okay to have dreams. It's okay to have finances. It's okay to have hope and wants and all kinds of things like that. I'm not saying that you can't be your own person. But what I am saying is when you're in a relationship, two will become one. So you have to submit the power over yourself, the power to pursue whatever you want, the power to control all your finances, the power to make your own decisions. That goes away. You can make your own decisions, but that's not the end of it. As one, you bring it to the other person. You communicate together. You do it together. You make decisions together. It is total and complete saturation between the two parties. That's commitment. That's the two becoming one. Being separate people in a marriage is what you are. You are, in essence, two people. However, in your marriage, if the goal isn't to be that one, to have that oneness, it's really going against the grain and the fabric of what a relationship even is. Two will become one. And if you don't have that standard in your marriage that we are one and in this together as one, more conflict will come, more problems will come. You can't have a commitment if the two people aren't committed. So being two people, you also can't control the other person, right? What can you control in your relationship? You and yourself. So how can you make a marriage work, make a relationship work? Yourself. Controlling yourself, choosing yourself, loving for yourself. The degree that you invest yourself into the commitment, into the oneness, is going to determine your satisfaction in the marriage. Marriage is about companionship. It was about filling a hole of loneliness inside of Adam. That's why God created Eve and joined them. So the goal of marriage is to have a companion, to have a partner, and to have someone who is ultimately thoroughly dedicated to you. That's what your heart wants, and that's what your heart is looking for when you're seeking a marriage, when you're seeking a relationship. To have that, you have to go into it knowing that all you can do, the only thing you can do to get what you desire, total commitment from another person, the only thing you can do to get that is commit yourself. If you commit yourself, that's how you're going to be most fulfilled in a marriage, in a relationship. Marriage is hard, guys. You can't control another person. You can't control their level of commitment. You can only control yourself. You have to set the standard for yourself of what a marriage, what a relationship should look like. Total and utter commitment. And you can't demand that from another person. You have to demonstrate that with your own actions. To the degree that you are committed to your relationship is the degree that they will be committed back. Otherwise, it's not fair. Otherwise, it won't work. There's going to be problems. There's going to be pain. And that's not a relationship. Relationship is commitment. And number 3, last one, marriage is reflection. So I believe that the entire Bible is pointing to the relationship between Jesus and us. The entire Bible points to Jesus. Paul, the Apostle Paul, actually explicitly says that in Ephesians 5, after he gives commands to husbands and wives. He says marriage is a profound mystery, and he is saying that it relates to Christ and the church. So, the institution of marriage itself is not merely for human satisfaction. It was not just for Adam and Eve to not be lonely anymore, not just for you to be lonely anymore. The institution of marriage is meant to is meant to be a reflection between God and humanity, more than it is a human thing. It's a reflection. The ultimate purpose of a marriage is to reflect God's commitment, reflect God's love to humanity. Why do we love, and how I explain it, the dance of love with feeling and choice and action? Because that's how God loved us. Why is marriage commitment? Because God loves us with that same commitment. Marriage works best when both people remember it is a reflection of how God loves us, how God has committed himself to us. The hard part about marriage and the current state of humanity being broken and sinful, in a relationship, in a marriage, you're probably going to get hurt. People are going to disrespect you. People are going to do hurtful things. People are going to leave. And how do we get through experiences like that? How do we overcome the effects of sin? Ultimately, it's found in forgiveness, which is going to be another part in this series. It's forgiveness, and it's remembering. It's remembering how Jesus treats us when we fail him. If you make the choice to love, if you make the choice to commit, you are taking on a pretty hefty weight and expectation. Marriage is a reflection. And when you decide to walk into that, a relationship that leads to a marriage, or if you're in a marriage, you are called as a Christian and as a man to love as God has loved you. To love your wife as God has loved the church. Jesus didn't just have great feelings about us. Jesus didn't just act. Jesus chose to love. Jesus chose commitment. God did not have to do what he did. Because of our sin, because of your sin, because of your failures, he could have walked away. He could have raised his hands and said, "No, I'm done with this one because what they did was wrong." Instead, he chose to love. He chose to remember his commitment to humanity. And instead of throwing us away, he chose to forgive. He chose to overcome the power and darkness and devastation of sin by going to the cross for us. If that is the foundation of your heart, if you know that because of your sin, God could have thrown you away, but he came here to die for you instead. If you know that, then every relationship you pursue, you can walk that out in real time. You can choose to love as he loved you. You can choose to commit as he is committed to you. We serve a God who stops at nothing to show us his utter and total commitment, to show us that he's not willing to give up when adversity and failure comes. He doubles down. God came here in the person of Jesus to show you how committed he is, to show you how valuable you are to him. Make the choice to love. That is a relationship. A relationship, a marriage, is love, a commitment, and a reflection. Okay, guys, that's going to be part one. We're going to take a deep dive into part two and beyond from there. There's a ton of things we got to talk about, a ton of things we got to learn, but remember this foundation. Any relationship and any marriage, love, commitment, reflection. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. God bless.